welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Essential Skills Insight webinar series from our CPD team here in Engineers Ireland. So this is session 39. It's titled Ethical Practice, so looking at ethical behaviours, models and leadership. And as you're fully aware, it counts for 1 full hour that you can add to your CPD record. We're joined today by Dennis Coleman. Dennis has over 35 years experience across a number of sectors and has managed and consulted all levels within the field of supply chain management. Dennis currently lectures on a variety of business programs at Griffith College and South East Technical University, and is a faculty member and examiner with the Institute of Leadership in the UK. Dennis continues his studies and is currently studying towards a doctorate in business admin, and he's here to speak to you today about ethical practice. I'll hand over to Dennis in a moment, but just first of all to run through a bit of housekeeping with yourselves. So first of all, to note that the question and answer session at the end of the presentation will be held, and it can be done using the Q&A function. So just asking you, if you have any questions that come to you throughout the lecture, to just pop them into that Q&A section, and we'll aim to answer as many questions as possible at the end, depending on time. And then also, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties throughout the webinar, just use the chat function to message myself. If that isn't available to you, you can also email cpdtraining@engineersireland.ie, or if it's an urgent matter, call us on 01665 and ask for myself, Niamh Wafer. And then at the end of this webinar, you'll also be directed to an online survey. So that survey is just asking for your feedback on what you've learned today. And your feedback is extremely valuable. So we really do appreciate it and would love if you took the time to complete that at the end of the webinar. And last thing to mention is just a massive thank you to South East Technical University and Eamon Sweeney, who have brought this lecture to ourselves today. So without further ado, Dennis, I'm going to hand over to yourself, and we'll be back at the end for the Q&A. Thanks, Emil.
Thanks, Niamh. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to start by giving you all a question, and you can put your answer in the chat box. And all you need to answer is yes or no. You're offered a van for your business. You need that. You need it for your survival in the current cost of living crisis. It's 25,000. They'll give it to you for free if you report that you received a van worth 50,000. In the chat box, please just write in yes or no. Would you accept? Okay, some people are there. That's great. Thank you very much. Calls coming in there. Okay, there's a yes in there too. Mostly no. Okay, freezing. Thanks for that, Jenna. We're sorting now, I think. Hopefully. Mostly no's. There's one yes in there. I love asking this in a live class, because when I ask this in a live class, the person who says yes generally gets a bit of a reaction from people to why they would do that. This is an ethical conundrum. This is what ethics is all about. Balancing what's known as right or wrong. And if we go into definitions, just a quick run through on some of this, ethics is a belief about what's right and wrong, what's good and bad. We learn ethics from the day we're born, or our upbringing, or the way our parents, our siblings, our friends, our teachers, our colleagues as we got into the workplace. We learn from others. We learn from observing what is acceptable behavior and what isn't. In a business context, ethics refers to the ethical or unethical behaviors of employees in the context of their jobs. Being presented with a business situation of would you accept something which is essentially falsifying documents, falsifying information, even if it means the survival of your business. And it opens up a very deep philosophical question of, do we only behave ethically when everything else is equal and our businesses are doing fine and we're not struggling to survive? Do we forget ethics when things get tight, when things get dodgy, when we're struggling? There's a whole set of thought out there that says that's what happened. I don't believe it. I think people still have a barometer within them. Our ethical behavior is what conforms with the social norms about what's right and wrong. What do we believe is, from a societal perspective, is it right or wrong? And unethical is obviously the things that society has deemed as invalid, wrong, bad. Within an organization, our overall view of ethics is shaped by these areas: our individual ethics, the family influence, our professional ethics, the values in our workplace, but also within the professional ethics, professional organizations like Engineers Ireland. You have codes of ethics that you subscribe to. When you join the organization, you subscribe to them. In some cases, you have to physically sign them. When I joined some of the bodies I'm involved in, I would have had to physically sign a document and then send it in. And then every year after that, I have to continue to subscribe to them, continue to agree to them. Maybe not by physically signing them, but the fact that I renew membership and stay with them, I am continuing to be bound by what I signed originally. And they're the rules that are considered acceptable by those professional bodies. And we also have the customs and legal rules of society that we must live by. They all impact within the organization. They all drive within the organization. And we're then within that faced with ethical decisions. Do we accept it? One of the big ones within organizations is, do we accept gifts? Some companies have done away with them completely. They banned them. I can remember being involved in delivering a training program in a pharmaceutical organization in Cork a number of years ago. And I did one part of it, and there was another trainer came in and another lecturer came in and did another part of it. So I did my part and I went away, and the other trainer came in to do their part a couple of days after. And they noticed that, when they took coffee breaks or, the general breaks during the day, there was, barely just tea and coffee presented. That's all that was brought into the room. And the trainer felt a little bit, he just felt it was wrong. So coming into one of his classes, he stopped off at a supermarket and he bought a small box of biscuits, the plastic tray with the assortment of biscuits in it. He brought that in and put it on the table so that when tea and coffee was delivered, I said to the guys at the course, help yourselves, there's some biscuits there. Just have a biscuit with your cup of tea or cup of coffee. Just that. And they had what they wanted, and he finished up the day and he went off, and there was about a half a tray of the biscuits left. He went away. Someone will take them, someone will use them. And the training manager, training company, got a phone call the next day. Please arrange for somebody to come to the factory and collect the biscuits that you left after you. We don't accept those. It was seen as unethical to accept just an open packet of biscuits. It was seen as wrong. The fact that there was this brought in and left was seen as a breach of ethics. Is that taking it to an extreme? Primarily because the lecturer wanted to have a biscuit with a cup of coffee, but didn't want to do it on his own. We can take it maybe to an extreme, which is something that shows to me maybe the wider lack of understanding of ethics, of what it's all about. We don't think of it. We don't talk about it. But we're faced with it. And sometimes we take an overzealous reaction to what is just a small token or a small, just something that's of low consequence. It wasn't a free holiday to everybody for granting the training contract. It was a packet of biscuits. It cost a couple of quid. I've been victim yeah, I'll call it a victim of potential ethical questions over my career twice. Both times I caught it, thankfully, and returned what it was. Refused to touch it the first time. You could have had anthrax, and I just wasn't touching it. I just recoiled and I fell off the chair to get so far away from it. They were given as tokens. They were given as ingratitude for dealing with the company, just a thank you. But in my head, my ethics was going to be brought into question. And it's not so much anything that had been done. The deal had already been done. They were already supplying. But the issue was, what else will be looked for? Can we get it? We're looking to put a bit of this stock into all the shop. We're looking for a bit of a heads up on this contract. Do you remember? Did you enjoy that holiday we sent you? Did you enjoy those gifts we sent you? You don't know. And this day and age, people get very suspicious of what exactly is being given, what exactly is being done, and where we're being asked to do something that may not feel right. So how do we make an ethical judgment? Let's see if I can zoom on this a small bit. We have 3 stages. We have, first of all, finding the information of what we're trying to do here. Step 2, analyzing the facts. To make sure that we're determining what needs to happen. What are we doing? What decision are we making here? Why is it being made? And then deciding whether we're actually making an ethical decision or not. If I go across, and hopefully I can move the slide list. No, I can't. So I'll take it out. When we gather the facts, we're looking at 4 areas. That's the box, the second orangey box or pinky box or whatever box down. We're looking at the utility. Does it optimize the benefit for those who are affected by it? Does it respect the rights of the people involved? This is a benchmarking system to work out how we actually. I'll give you a simpler one in a few minutes. But does it benchmark? Does it respect rights? Is it consistent with what's fair? And is it consistent with people's responsibilities to each other? If the answer is no to all of those, then your decision is not what the decision you make is not ethical. If it's no on a couple of them, well, then you need to review them a little bit and see if there's something that we can, we have to debate a little bit more. And if it's yes to all of the four facts, then it's an ethical decision. I'll give you a simpler way of measuring it. A much easier way of checking is a decision I'm about to make ethical, right, just, proper for the company, for me, for everybody. Very simple. There's 2 parts. After you make your decision, would you be happy to go home and tell your family and friends of your decision, of the decision you took? Would you be happy to sit down and talk to family, friends, colleagues about it? If the answer is yes, then there's a good chance that it was an ethical decision. If the answer is maybe, then maybe you need to sit back and think a bit more about it. If the answer is no, then your decision is unethical. You shouldn't do it. Here's an even more starker way of looking at that. You're in the High Court in Dublin. You are sitting in the dock. The judge is there, the jury is there, the prosecution, the defense, your colleagues, your bosses, your family, and observers are all sitting there in the audience, in the crowd watching. You're in the dock. Would you be happy to have a barrister stand up and read out your actions? If you're happy that let them tell me about it. Let them say what I did because I'm quite happy with those things. Well, then you're making an ethical decision. You're happy to share it. You're happy to have it read out in a court. you're happy to have everybody hear about it, you're confident, then yes, it was an ethical decision. It is a proper right decision, rightful thing to do. And you could stand over it and you can defend it, you can do whatever, no problem. If there's any question mark in what you're doing, the slightest question mark, well, then that should be an indicator for us to say, well, hold on a second now. Let me think about this. Maybe this is going to bite me. And I better make sure that I'm well organized for this, well protected for this. Because if we don't, we're walking ourselves into a problem. And here's something we need to be careful of. Each of us, while we subscribe to codes of ethics, while we do all the stuff that is expected of us, we are responsible for our own behavior, our own ethical compliance. No matter what you sign to, we can all sign a piece of paper. We can all click on something online and say, there, I've agreed to it. How many times have we agreed to terms and conditions of software packages, of electrical things that we buy, and we never read them? But we all agree to them. So it's easy to sign anything. As I say, paper never refused ink. But do we actually live them? Do we know what they are? Do we ever think about what we do and how we act and whether we're acting ethically, whether we're doing the right thing by our company, the right thing by our career, the right thing by the job we're doing right now? Let me give you another example of an ethical decision. You're working for a client on engineering work, so you know there's an easier way to do a task that they're looking to be done. But the easier way to do the task will actually work out cheaper and will reduce the cost for the client. Whereas if you keep going the way you're going, it's going to cost the client more, and therefore there's more money to be made by the company. There's more profit to be made for you as an engineer. Do you tell the client? Or do you keep going because the client has already agreed to the way you're doing it? Do you keep going? Is that an ethical decision? It is. It's one that comes up. It's one that comes up across multiple industries, including the finance sector, where we go to book our insurance and there's a cheaper version of the insurance and we're not told about it because we didn't ask about it. We just accept what we're given. It's a long time being argued by various bodies that that's an unethical approach to doing business. And yet it happens. Not telling a customer of the alternatives. That's unethical. And colleagues are watching how you do this. Because ethical leadership, we all have the ability to lead in ethics. It doesn't have to be senior management. Yes, senior management should lead by example. But everybody has the ability to be an ethical leader. One of the things here, one of the points here that put up as a definition of it is identified by the behaviors, values, and motives that they display. They're honest, they're trustworthy, they're altruistic, they're fair. They have an influence over others. They demonstrate ethics by their behavior. They make sure they pass on benefit. They make sure people are kept informed. They make sure they do what is right, what is just for the customer, for the client, for the company. It comes from our personal ethics. I know, so I've met people who will tell me that it is quite okay and safe, and they actively do it, will drive along a motorway at 140 kilometers an hour and no less. And they say that's quite safe, it's quite okay, their car can handle it. They're driving a big BMW. There was a car passed me on Tuesday. I was coming back from Limerick. I was lecturing in Limerick on Tuesday. I was coming back up the M7, and there was an Audi past me, and I can guarantee you he was not doing 120. I'd say 140, 150 plus. The speed he came from nowhere behind me to disappearing somewhere up the front of me. He thought he was being ethical. He was on the outside lane. He wasn't affecting anybody. He was just maybe in a hurry. Maybe he was heading for a plane. Maybe he was late for a meeting. Maybe he was a surgeon going to do emergency surgery. Or maybe he was just an idiot who thought he could just do whatever he wanted because he was driving an Audi. I don't know. Didn't get to stop the guy to ask him. This friend of mine told me that he would drive at 140 on a motorway all the time. He would come down to 130 in fog. 130 kilometers an hour up on a motorway. And I said, what happens if a truck pulls out to overtake another truck? They're traveling at 95 kilometers an hour. His response was, they're not supposed to do that. And you can tell the driver when your car stops at the back of the truck and you still sail through the body of the truck and end up in the cab with him. You can tell him that. Or a car pulls out to overtake the truck and the car is doing 110. You're doing 140. They're wrong. They shouldn't be on the motorway. They shouldn't be doing that at that speed. I'm okay. His view, he's behaving ethically. He's setting the example of how we should drive on a motorway. He is perfect at it. But is he? Society will say he's not. He's breaking speed limits. He is breaking the laws. Therefore, he is acting unethically. He is being aggressive. How does he act in his business? How does that action, that behavior translate into a business environment? Does he come in demanding stuff? Does he just walk in and expect things are going to happen? Does he browbeat his customers into making agreements? I asked that of a PR consultant once. Do her customers ever feel that they have been forced into an agreement? And she got very indignant about it immediately, which is understandable. I did ask the question. I did poke the lion a bit. But then I said, because we were looking at behaviors, the behavioral thing outside of the lecturing, I'm a behavioral consultant. So I started saying, would you ever have a customer who kind of goes, I don't know, maybe should we wait a while? Is there more we should be looking at? What else can we do? Maybe if we just held off for a little while. I gave her a few statements like that, and she basically threw her eyes up the heaven and said, oh, God, I hate those people. Always. I get those people all the time. Because she's proactive. She's driven forward. Let's go. Come on, move. Let's make a decision. Let's make it happen. But your customers may not be that way. Your clients may not be that way. And your beliefs, your actions actually can impact your clients. Is that ethical? Is it right for you to force a client, to force somebody to make a decision on something when their way of doing things is different? Should we not step back and recognize the behavior we're seeing, be observant to what we're seeing, listen to what's going on, and react accordingly? Bring our personal integrity into the process so that we can influence people, but do it in a way that's acceptable to them, that they're not feeling like they've been railroaded, that they've been forced into a decision, that it's been taken out of their control. Is that ethical behavior to force that? I would argue no. How do we assess it though? How do you assess ethical behavior, ethical leadership? We want to make sure that people are doing things and not putting the company at risk. That's what we're there for. That's what we do. But a lot of decisions that are made in businesses are risky. And in the current climate, there's an awful lot of business decisions that are quite risky. Things are going wrong, seem to be going wrong all over the place. Between wars and cost of living crisis and various natural disasters, it was interesting to watch planes landing in Dubai airport the other day, and they were more like boats than planes going along the runway in this flood of water. We have other disasters like the cargo ship hitting a bridge or drifting into a bridge, dismantling it. That boat is still there. It has not moved. There's half a bridge on top of it. So all the containers are all still there. Now, what are those businesses going to do to keep their customers sweet? The supplies are not going to arrive. They're already late. They're 3 or 4 weeks ago since this happened. So that container ship should have arrived in Europe about 3 weeks ago. And be doing what it needs to do. The products move on. The whole system has been shot to heck because everything is now out of place. So how do we deal with the dilemmas? What do we do to think about how our behavior changes as we're trying to troubleshoot and sort a problem? What corners do we cut to sort a problem? And is that right? Are we doing the right thing? Or who's suffering because of it? Who are the stakeholders? Do we even know who our stakeholders are? Do we know the people who are impacted by our decision process? The people who will be impacted by us when we talk about what's ethical, what's right, we do the right thing. Who is that impacting? Are we considering it as victimless? Are we considering our actions as something that is harmless? What is it? Have we even thought about it? Or do we just get caught up in the process and just bulldoze through and hope for the best? Ethics is a sensitive subject for people. We try to reduce the level of harm that can be caused. We try to obviously be profitable. Our business, that's the reason we exist, is to be profitable. We may have other altruistic views, but our main junction, our main purpose of business is profit. But what happens when business suffers? What do we do with the profit? Do we use some of it to keep us for the next time to protect us? Or do we pay it out? Do we pay the investors? What's the right thing to do? What about when you lay workers off? When things are tight and you have to lay people off, how do you ethically decide who goes? Last in, first out? That can be one way of doing it. Oldest people who might be coming up for retirement, maybe let them go earlier and leave the young people have their jobs, even the last in people. Or do we just slash and burn? And if we do start laying people off, what's that doing to our intellectual property? What's that doing to the rest of the business? What's that doing to the pressures we put on people? Is that ethical? Is that right? I was talking to a person, a colleague earlier today in one of the universities, and she was telling me that a person that she had there on her to actually basically cover off a lot of the admin work while she's doing the management work, her contract has not been renewed and she's finishing tomorrow at the busiest time of the year, end of year, exam board, and all that sort of stuff. What are we going to do? Is it ethical to just not only terminate a contract, but put a member of staff under additional pressure and not give any resources, but still expect the same stuff to be done? It's all around us. Ethics is all around us. We cannot get away from it. We don't think about it. We don't take it into consideration. So the ethical decisions we make impact others. Should you hold payment to suppliers for as long as possible so it benefits your firm? And I do know of a business in Ireland that did that. I don't think they do it anymore, or they certainly don't do it to the extent they used to. It was a retailer. And if you went in and did your shopping with them and you paid using your debit card at the checkout, before you got the shopping trolley to your car, the money was gone out of your account. But instead of the 30-day payment schedule for the suppliers, this company wouldn't pay suppliers for maybe 60 or 90 days. They would hold the money in their bank account instead. It's gone from your account, it's in their account. They'd hold it in their account. They're making an extra month's interest on the money in the bank account, and then they'll pay you. But the supplier has to maintain cash flow for 2 to 3 months until they see the payment coming through and ensure 7 days a week delivery of product. Or they will get penalized and they will get fined because they've left the business short. Where's the ethics in that? Where's that's profiteering at somebody else's expense. That is definitely a breach of ethics. That is not good practice. It was that way in a lot of organizations, but it has improved in some. Some of organizations will now pay strictly on the 30 days, and some will pay even faster. A lot of public sector pays in the in 2 weeks. Now, how do you work the process? What would you pay severance there? How many companies have closed during the last while where people have not paid? They've had to go with the statutory payments. The companies themselves haven't paid anything. And some of these people working for decades in the same company. Who should you buy goods from? What about the buying goods from companies where there's the accusations of child labor, forced labor, low pay, fair trade? How do you manage that? How do you work that? Where's the ethical decisions in that? It's all around us, this concept, and it's very easy to basically decide that we're all doing great. We're all around us. We're not. Managers should behave ethically in order to avoid harming others. Managers should be aware that any unethical behaviors run the risk of a loss of reputation. It's not just your reputation, though. It's who you represent, your company, your consultancy. You're losing personal reputation, but you're also losing your corporate reputation. What does that do? It impacts your business. We might think that ethics is only good when we're all doing well. And when we're struggling to survive, nobody thinks of ethics. Unfortunately, that is not the way it works. Look at the reputation the insurance industry gets for not quoting because people don't challenge. They play the game that if someone doesn't challenge the price they give them, then they're quids in. I've actually had it this morning, my own car insurance. I got the bill the other day. I contacted the company. I said, okay, this is crazy. What, this is a big increase on last year, yet the car's a year older. So, what's the story? And they came along, and all of a sudden, amazing. It was absolutely amazing how the price dropped to pretty much what it was last year. Amazing. In one email. Because I challenged and I asked what the justified. Tell me why this is the way it is. My background is supply chain. My background is purchasing. And my view is I should always get the best price from day one. And if you're going to, I'm not getting into the haggle run. I'm not getting into the bidding and the, do better. Can you do better? I don't play that game. I hate that game. because I don't think it's ethical. I should be given the price that's the actual price. If there's a further discount after that, well, then that's down to a relationship with the seller and the buyer, or whatever. That's a different situation. But the actual price given should be the price. Why would I come along and have to challenge to see if that's the best? Why do they have to wait until I ask, is that the best? And then when I ask the question, they come back and drop the price by 60 or 70 euro. Where's the ethics in that? Where's the right in that? Where's the doing the right thing in that? The answer is it's nowhere, because it doesn't exist. Your reputation is judged is at stake here. And you might say, yeah, the reputation or reputation, what the heck? Your reputation for being accurate, for being loyal, for being fair, for being honest, for all of the things that you're measured on. In other words, your ethical responsibilities, your leadership. You're being watched by your management, you're being watched by your customers, you're being watched by your families, you're being watched by new members of staff who are looking up to you for examples. And if they see you getting away with stuff, well, what are they learning? What is the ethics going to be like in your organization then? Well, I learned it from so-and-so. So-and-so told me that this is what to do. This is the way we do it. This is the way we've always done it. This one statement I hate in business. So how can you improve it then? How can you improve it not just for yourself, but within an organization? Well, you start by looking for people who have a higher ethical standard. People who live by the rules. We get questions at interviews to test our ethical views, like the van, to give people a perspective of what someone would do. We'll be given situations to show, so you can prove at an interview that you actually are a person who believes in right. How do you establish the codes of ethics or develop codes of ethics? Engineers Ireland has your code of ethics. Do you all know what they are? They were renewed last year, reviewed and updated last year. Do you know what they are? Have you read them? When did you last read them? Is this 1 hour session on ethics the only ethics consideration you're going to give this year? Or do you actually go away from here and think about it? Do you go back and read the Code of Ethics for Engineers Ireland or any other organizations you're involved in? Next time you're faced with a decision, do you stop for a second and think about it? Or do you just continue as normal, that's done, tick a box, I got my little attendance cert, I'm done? Ethics is more than just a 1 hour session at lunchtime. Ethics is a way of life. There are some who would say it's almost a philosophy. Ethical behavior is not just a business term. You lead by example. There are people looking at you. The public sees how you act. You're driving around in a van which has a brand on the side of it, has a name on the side of it. You are being governed by how you drive. You're being governed by what people see, where you park. I don't know how many times I've seen pictures of branded vans parked up in disabled spots or parked up in electric car spots when they're not electric vehicles. And there are people going around, they spot it, they'll take a picture and it'll go up on social media. And the brand goes up with it. People see a brand. Just because you're not in the vehicle doesn't mean they don't see you. They see the brand and you're the person who put it there. But do we think? The tradition is I was only leaving it there for a second. I was only running in to grab something for a second. You might say the people who took the photograph, they're just busybodies. And maybe they are. Maybe they're wrong to do that. But that shows, to me, what that shows is the intolerance towards bad behavior, towards what's considered to be socially unacceptable behavior of parking a commercial vehicle in a disabled parking spot. That shows the fact that people stop to take a picture and post it completely opened. The brand is visible, the registration is visible, the whole lot. The person driving down the motorway putting pressure on a vehicle to get out of their way because they want to blast the van up the road ahead of wherever they're going. That's bullying. It's unethical. It's bad behavior. But we do it. We see it being done. Is that leading by example? What sort of example is that setting? What view is that giving to the people you're blasting past on the motorway, the people who are in the car park, in a disabled car and can't park because your van is there? Even if you're only in there for a minute. What does that message does that send? What do people remember? Well, if we set realistic goals and what we're going to do, it's easier to behave ethically and to act ethically because we're not stretching ourselves. If we start to stretch ourselves, we start to get ourselves into problems in relation to how are we doing what we do. More pressure we put ourselves under, the less chance we're going to follow the ethics rules. Training. Sessions like this, hopefully get the idea of these is to get you thinking. Ethics is a huge subject. I've lectured in ethics for an entire semester, 12 3-hour sessions on corporate governance and ethics. So approximately 6 weeks each. That's 18 hours to teach people about or to talk about ethics, not 1 hour. But providing some sort of consistent thought process, getting into the habit of questioning decisions, reflecting on what we've done, how today's gone, what have we done that we could have done differently? Did we overstep the mark anywhere? Were we open and honest in our dealings with our colleagues, with our management, and with our customers all day, every day? Do we get independent social audits conducted of our system? In IT, you get IT management to send out false phishing emails to see who opens them, who clicks on the links, to see what level of training we need to do on cybersecurity. Why don't we do we do things like that in relation to ethics? Do we tempt people? Do we test people? I remember being told by my father when I started working that I need to be careful that they could test my honesty. He didn't call it ethics, test my honesty. And they did. Went into one of my first jobs at 13 years of age, and I was walking through a warehouse, and I found, I think at the time, this is going way back into the 70s, I found something like £5, a £5 note on the ground. And it was big enough in the 70s to be worth something serious, but not big enough that you kind of say, well, I just found it and stuck it in my pocket. And I went to the supervisor, the warehouse manager, and I said, look, I found that on the ground. And I just handed it to him and turned and walked away. He was with the store manager, the actual shop manager. And as I walked away, I heard one of them say, I don't know who said what to which person spoke, but I heard the words, well, we know he's honest anyway. I didn't even know what ethics was. Couldn't even spell ethics back then. But it was something that was tested and marked on. Is the person willing to hand back if they find something, or do they just pocket it and go? Simple test to test our ethical behavior. What happens if I pocketed it? Would I have lost my job? Probably not. But how would management have looked at me as a member of staff? Am I honest and open and fair, or am I opportunist? Worth thinking about. We also need to support people. Anyone facing an ethical dilemma within the organization, within your work, do you have kind of an open door policy where somebody can come and talk to you if they're faced with a decision they don't know how to act? They don't know how to go with it. Is there an open door to talk? or not? In most companies, no, we're afraid to talk. We're afraid to mention it. I remember saying to my boss, I said I was tempted twice. One of the times I was tempted was coming up to Christmas, and I was handed a diary and a tin of sweets. That was accepted by the company. That was policy. We could accept those. I took them home, and the thing I do with all diaries is, I don't know if you do it or not, but I do it if I get a diary. I open it to see what day my birthday is the next year. It's Monday, by the way. And I opened the diary, and an envelope fell out. Opened the envelope, and there was a few €100 worth of vouchers for Liffey Valley shopping centre. And I freaked. I panicked. I completely lost it. Contacted the supplier, got on well with the guy, but this was way out of the norm. And he basically said, look, if you're unhappy with it, whatever, no harm intended, please just throw them in an envelope, send them back to me. No harm, no foul. We forget the whole thing. So I did that. And I decided that still didn't sit right with me. So I was being very uber good boy. I went to my boss on Monday morning and I said, look, this situation happened. And here's what I did about it. And he turned to me. He looked at me. He said, what did you do with them again? I said, I sent them back. They're gone back in the post. They were in the post on Saturday morning. And his response to me was, you bleeping idiot. Why don't you bring them in? I'd have taken them. And I can tell you, I mean, I got on very well with that manager. Still do. Still talk to him. But the view of him slipped. He was willing to accept that, and I consider it a pure bribe. So having the ability to talk to people about it is important. Developing the culture of what is right, sharing the information with the customers, keeping everybody informed, not profiteering at the expense of something else. Yes, we make a profit, but do it honestly. So ended today's sermon. Hope it's got you thinking about it. So thank you very much.